Hello Bitsbrew, this is Craig from bitsbox.co.uk here, and in this video I'm be going through the whole process of getting started with resin 3D printing. So this might be quite a big one, and I will break it down into different chapters. And yeah, I want to just sort of cover as much as I can. So if you're a complete beginner, never done anything with resin 3D printing in your life, don't know where to start, then hopefully this video is for you, and this will be as in-depth as I can possibly make it. Hopefully not too overwhelming. That is one thing I do worry about. There's a lot of information, but it's not as bad and as scary as you might think. So that's certainly the case for me. Although safety is really important, and I do take a lot of safety measures. I'm not saying you should follow all of them, because it really depends on how often you use your 3D printer and where you use it. But I certainly take a lot of safety precautions, and I'll show you all of them in this video. So yeah, we'll get straight into it. So and like I said, I want to cover everything. So before we even start looking at printers, we need to decide whether you even need a resin 3D printer and whether you can even have one in your space. So most people who follow our channel are in the miniature wargaming hobby, so it's quite safe to assume that resin 3D printing is probably for them. If you've come here because you've seen lots of fun little toys and things like that, for example, I've got this little sort of astronaut guy here. So this is printed in FDM, and little toys. You've probably seen the dragons and the pass-through pyramids and all sorts online. If that's the sort of thing you're looking for, then that is an FDM printing game. So that is not resin printing. You won't need a resin printer for them. It's not even cost effective to do so. Resin is a lot more sort of brittle as well, so stuff like that be more likely to break. And yeah, resin's just not suitable for that sort of stuff. So if you're looking to print stuff around your home, little toys and things like that, then FDM printing is the way to go. But I assume 99% of people watching this are more into miniatures. And yeah, I've got a few kicking around. Like this one, I think it's from Best Area. We'll look at where you can get all different types of miniatures and stuff to print later on. But yeah, if you want something a bit more detailed like this, I have no idea. I'm using the front camera, so it probably won't focus on this. But yeah, things like this, more detailed miniatures, or if you're in Warhammer, into your Warhammer, like a lot of people who watch our channel would be, then yeah, of course, you might want to print your own bits and pieces, or even proxy miniatures. And yeah, resin 3D printing is the way to go for all of that. So now we've decided that you want a resin printer and you have a need for it. Can you physically actually have one? So it's important to know that they do give off fumes. They're not good for you, but it is like if you have sort of a long exposure to them and to the resin itself, that's when you start getting issues. I like to think of it as maybe like spray paint. Like you wouldn't spray paint indoors unless you were had like the area ventilated. I mean, you probably wouldn't anyway. So maybe spray paint's not the best idea. The best example, maybe just more like regular house paint, maybe. But if you think of really, you just want some. Now, if you can have a sort of a well ventilated area, like if you've got like a garage to do it in, then perfect, or a shed. We will talk about heating. You will need some sort of heating, because resin 3D printing, people say it's best to print around sort of 20 degrees C. I think anything's above sort of 15 is normally fine, but yeah, closer to 20, certainly the better. So if you're in like a cold garage or shed, you will need some sort of heating set up for that. But ventilation is very important. If you live in a small apartment or flat and you don't even have a spare room to put it in, and you think of maybe putting it in your bedroom or in your home office or something like that, yeah, I wouldn't recommend that at all. Not unless you can build some sort of enclosure to get them fumes outside, or at the very least some sort of air purifier. Again, we'll look at all this later on, but yeah. Please take safety seriously. I've seen some big YouTubers not take it as seriously as I do. Again, I don't know how often they use the printers. If they only use them on the odd occasion, it's probably not too much of an issue, but I'm just very over the top with safety, and it's very important. Not trying to put people off. If you're watching this video, you might be really put off now, thinking they're very super dangerous. It's too much long-term exposure of anything's not really good for any of us. So yeah, it's just be very mindful. So with all that said and done, let's actually look at where you can even buy a printer and what printer you should probably get if you're a beginner. So for the purpose of this video, I will be purchasing an Elegoo Mars 5 Ultra. I say for the purposes of this video, I intend to use it quite a lot, not just buying it for this video. But the Mars 5 Ultra, as I film this in the early 2025, is probably one of the best resin printers you can get as a beginner. There's also the Mars 4 or the Mars 4 Ultra. But honestly, for the price of the Mars 5 Ultra, you know, it's a very, very good budget-friendly printer. Or if you're really on a budget, get the Mars 5, which is ridiculously cheap. It really is crazy how cheap these printers have become. So also you could maybe look at Anycubic and see what they have. They have the Photon range, which are very good printers, and the Mono M7, a little bit more expensive, but a very good printer. We also just got the regular Mono 4, which again, if you're on a budget, very good for the price. I do quite like Anycubic printers. I use Elegoo mostly. We've got Mono 4 Ultra there for like £200. But yeah, I've used a couple of Anycubics before in the past, and they've always been quite reliable. And then we've got Frozen as well. Again, I've used one of their printers, one of their older ones, but they've got like the Sonic Mini range and the Sonic Mighty range. The Sonic Minis, I think they're slightly smaller than the Elegoos. The prices are all in euros here. They are a bit more expensive, but the Mighties are quite large. And yeah, if you're looking for something larger as well, there are larger printers out there. The Elegoo Saturn range is also very good if you want something larger. But for what I normally do, miniature bits and pieces like that, these printers are very good. We've got Sonic Mini there. That's a very, very cheap printer as well. But yeah, pretty good. So yeah, they're the three sort of main companies, and they're the only ones that I've actually purchased printers from in the past. So I can't really start talking about other manufacturers because I really can't give a honest opinion on them. But yeah, they're the main three. And like I say, in the purposes of this video, we're going to use the Elegoo Mars 5 Ultra. It's a very, very good machine. And I think I've been using it for a couple of months now. This video has taken that long to get put together. But yeah, it's a brilliant machine. Like I say, I've used a few Elegoos in the past. This video is in no way sponsored by them or anyone. It's just my personal opinion. But yeah, they're pretty decent. And of course, you don't have to buy direct from manufacturers. You could buy second-hand if you really want to, or you can even buy some on places like Amazon. And speaking of Amazon, we do need to buy some accessories because you can't just buy your printer. You need some other bits as well. So let's hop onto Amazon and have a look. So as I say, safety is very important, and nitrile gloves are the first thing you need to buy, even before you buy resin. Well, I suppose you need to buy resin, but at the same time, get some gloves. I cannot just emphasize how important that is. Also, when you print as well, you need to wash your prints, and that will be done mostly in isopropyl alcohol. You can get water washable resin as well, which I did use for quite a while, but I just get much nicer looking prints with cleaning up with isopropyl alcohol. It just dries a lot faster, and you don't have to wait so long between washing and curing. And then of course you need to buy resin, and there's many different types of resin. I do suggest maybe if you're starting, maybe get like an ABS like type resin, because they're quite strong, but they're not like super tough and they're not super flexible. They're just like an all-round good resin, and they're not too brittle. So I definitely recommend them. And this is the one I will be buying and using in this video. And it's amazing how much cheaper resin has got since I first started this hobby about a few years ago. I was paying roughly £35–40 a bottle, and now getting them for like £17. It's amazing. But yeah, these are the main three things that you need to buy. Also, you could invest in a wash and cure station, and we'll be talking more about that later on in the video. But yeah, these three things, 100% definitely get. Possibly get a respirator as well. Again, I'll be looking at all the safety stuff later on in the video, so they're not really included in this little purchasing thing. But when you first start, gloves, resin, and IPA. Or if you're using water washable, then obviously you don't need the IPA. But I do recommend it, I really do. It depends how impatient you are, because really you need your miniatures or whatever you print in resin to be dry between the washing process and the curing process. Otherwise you could lose detail, or they could come out shiny and stuff. And yeah, IPA just dries so much faster than water does. So I think now's the time to show you the setup that I already have, and then we'll unbox the Mars 5 Ultra as well. So when I filmed all this footage, I sort of spoke over it as I did it, but I found I waffled on quite a bit, and you probably noticed already that I do that quite a lot. So I'm going to voice over this bit, and hopefully I can cut it down a little bit. So if you see me pointing and stuff and it's not really in sync with what I'm saying, that's just because I was probably saying something else at the time. But I'll try my best to try and get everything to match up well. But I'll get my point across. I'm waffling again. Let's get into it. Let's go. Okay, so here we have my setup, and I use one of these grow tent things. It's nice and large, and then I've got a fan at the back with the tube leading out through the wall, through the cavity, and straight outside. And I've got my Elegoo Mars 4 DLP in here, and a nice space where I'm going to set up the Mars 5 Ultra, and you can see behind my exhaust fan here. And that, yeah, as I say, that just blows up through there and then just outside. And yeah, that's been serving me really well lately, but it's not the only thing I use. So down here I have a Conway air purifier. It's not actually on as I'm filming this. This thing's really good, a very good air purifier. And yeah, I like to have that on, especially if it's winter and I don't have the window open so much. During the summer the window will be open all the time. I've got a blackout curtain near the window as well, because you don't really want sunlight getting in there too often. And you know, these covers here, they do help keep the light out. They're not 100%, but they do the job mostly. Another thing with these covers as well, I am going to turn this around, because on the back there is a little piece you can take off, and then if you want to run an extractor just directly out of your printer, so if you're only using the one printer, rather than having a big old enclosure like this, you could just run directly out through a fan on the back. You could insert a tube there and put it through a fan. I still do recommend an enclosure if you can, but yeah, they do give you the option to do that as well. Certainly on the newer Elegoo printers. I can't speak for any others, so I do apologise, because I just don't know. And I did mention it earlier, but I didn't show off. I just have my respirator hanging up here. It's near the door where I come in, so I know not to forget to use it. I do recommend them. Obviously, if you are well ventilated and you've got the other precautions, you could get away with not needing one. But like I say, I take every safety measure I can. Okay, so we've looked at the safety measures, we've looked at the setup I've got. So how about we unbox that printer? So yeah, I'm not doing a voiceover for this. This is just what I recorded. So I apologise if the audio's a bit inconsistent. So let's get into it. And here we have the box for the Mars 5 Ultra. Apologies about the absolute disaster of the floor. It's not all muck and damage caused by resin printing in here. You know, if you have like cheap laminate and you have an office chair, because it used to be an office in here, and where I've been wheeling the chair about, it's just worn the laminate in places. But why am I explaining that? That doesn't matter, because you just want to see what's in this box. And And yeah, well, this is like a little unboxing part of the video, just so you know what to expect when you get your new resin printer. So power lead in there, hopefully you can see what I'm showing you alright. There we go. Obviously loads of packaging. I hate packaging, I understand why we need it, but boy do I hate it. I'm throwing away so much packaging. We have a user manual. A very light box. Whether there's anything in it, I don't know. There is. Okay, so it's like a little plastic tray thing. I wonder if that goes around the printer and just to help protect the surface. I probably won't need that, but that's pretty cool. Just feels like vacuum formed plastic. And here we have the actual printer itself. Now, it might be a bit of a pain to get out. So, I'll get this out. I'll get it whacked up in the setup. And yeah, I'll be back in a bit. Okay, so I've just ripped open the box basically, and I thought I will show you guys this bit. I wonder if I could just lower the camera down a bit. Yeah. So what you'll get, and it's the same with most printers, is a lot of the stuff, once you lift the lid up, will be inside. So yeah. We have our Elegoo toolkit. You get this with almost every tool, every 3D printer from Elegoo, and other manufacturers will have their own toolkits. We're going to look inside this Uno Memento very soon. We have our build plate. Now, I'm not a fan of this build plate. I don't like the 2-level thing. I've heard you get a lot of resin stuck under there. But it will level itself a hell of a lot better than the old ones, and it's a chunky bit of kit, and it's very cold. Time of year. We've got to have that already in place, but I'm probably going to have to take it out to get the film off. And there's a little camera or something they have there. Pretty cool. Yeah, so now I'll get this up where it belongs. Right, so just quickly jumping back to the desk, we're going to have a look at our Elegoo toolkit. So, yeah, you get Allen keys and some spare little screws. Now, you find with 3D printers, especially resin ones, is that they just use so many different types of screw heads that you do need about 3 different size Allen keys for them. But don't worry, again, I know this will be overwhelming, but you won't be using them very often. Only really have I ever used Allen keys to change the FEP sheet, and with some of the older printers I've had to open them up to replace the screens, but I don't think that's really an issue we'll have to worry about too much with newer machines. You always get a plastic little scraper thing. I mean, I use it for mixing the resin in the vat if it's been left for a while, but other than that, I really don't use these. And there's a little aerial, because these newer printers support Wi-Fi. I've never actually owned a printer up until now, resin printer that is, that supports Wi-Fi, so that'll be a new experience for me. You do get some gloves, so don't worry if you've ordered some gloves and they haven't turned up yet. You do have enough gloves for a few prints. Obviously the power bank. Quite a good handful of filters actually. Normally I'm used to getting about 2 of these, but there's quite a good handful there, so well done Elegoo. They're very handy if you ever want to just pour resin back into the bowl and you don't want any little dried up bits getting back in the bottle. USB stick. I hate these, they're just crap. Put it bluntly, I mean they do a job for a little while, but they will eventually stop working. I recommend getting a SanDisk one eventually, but yeah, I don't know, I just don't like them. That should have, unless they're on the printer, normally there'll be some files loaded up onto them. Watch, we'll look. Cheaty box Pro's license serial number, with 12 months. That's pretty cool. To be honest, we're going to look at slicing later, but For an average user, I just don't see any reason why anyone would need the Pro version. The basic will do the job, and we will look at that later on. A metal scraper. This actually doesn't seem too bad. I normally end up buying a better one, more heavy duty and more sharper one, because these aren't actually that sharp, but not even sharp. Sharper ones are normally better, but they'll probably do the job. And then there's some face masks as well. Again, I was pointing out earlier about a respirator. You got face masks there if you need them. So that's what you get in the toolbox. Okay, so I've put it in the place that I want to have it. And I'm going to loosen the screws for the vat. Now this has a very weird system where the vat moves up and down. I've not used anything like that before. What you got to do is just remove the protective piece of your vat. Try not to touch the actual FEP sheet, just to not get fingerprints or anything on it. It's not the end of the world if you do. And we've got one just over the screen here now. This should have a tempered glass screen protector over it as well, which a lot of newer printers do to protect the screen, because that is the one area which is most likely to get damaged if anything. And then we put these screws back in. I'm not a huge fan of these big screws. If you're not careful, you can get resin down into the holes and they become a bit of a pain to screw in. Actually on my if you can see on my Mars 4 there, I've just had to put a couple of washers just underneath because I can't get it to screw all the way down to the bottom. But as long as they're tight and they do bite onto the threads, then they are okay. I've noticed I managed to get a tiny little bit of fluff in there, which I'll have to just carefully remove. And then we can pour some resin in and get on our build plate. You'll see here as well, it goes without saying, the resin level cannot exceed the max line in the tank. I mean, I don't really need to explain that to you guys, because as the build plate goes in, obviously the resin will rise, and if it's above the max line, then it could go over the sides, and that will cause all sorts of disasters. And I'm going to jump in here because after using the printer for a little while, that max level line, you need to be sort of below it maybe by about a centimetre, because that max line seems to count for when the build plate is actually in the vat. And the Mars 5 won't let you print if you have too much resin in there, which is good because it stops any sort of resin from overflowing. So yeah, you really don't need to fill the vat all the way up. This resin will go a lot further than you actually think. So after all of that, I did realise that obviously it's not an issue with the Mars 5 Ultra, but with a lot of printers, especially older ones, you do need to level the build plate first. So you do that before you put the vat in. So if you've got an older printer and you need to level the build plate, then take that vat back out if you're following along, because we're going to level the build plate. And I'll show you how to do this on the Mars 4 DLP, because obviously, like I say, you don't need to do it on the Mars 5 Ultra, which is nice, and hopefully that's a feature of all newer Resin 3D printers going forward, because it is a pain in the backside. It doesn't take long to level it, but if you get it wrong, your prints can start failing, and then you have to do it again, and yeah. But I'll show you how to do that, because for a lot of printers, it is still something that needs to be done. Okay, leveling your build plate. So first thing to do is actually attach your build plate. And with the older Elegoo machines, they just go on like so. And you tighten that up. You then need to loosen these bolts. Like so, and you heard it drop, so you know it's like loose and wobbles around. Next, this is just an A4 piece of paper folded in half. You don't necessarily have to fold it in half, I just find it a little bit better when it is folded in half. Ideally, you want a piece of paper that's going to at least cover the entire build plate. And then, on tools, you should have somewhere where you can set the home. So on here you go on manual, and you go on home, and that will then lower the printer while that's lowering, I will say you do normally get a quick start guide. This will tell you how to do it in there. For the Mouse 5 Ultra, we don't need to do it, so it doesn't say in there. So that beeps when it's at home, and you just straighten it out just a little bit. So make sure it's nice and straight. Some build plates are obviously designed differently, so they don't move that way, and then you need to tighten everything back up. So now you have to do the paper test, and ideally you want the paper to, you'll be able to pull it out, but you want some resistance. Now I know my machine is already leveled, so it's exactly where I want it to be. But let's move it up just a couple of millimeters. So even just 1 millimeter, you can see that is too loose. And you can do increments of 0.1 millimeter, which I do recommend. Obviously, I know we need to go down by 1. If we were to go down even further, there's no way that's coming out. So we know that that is too close. And yeah, so that is what you want. You want it to have some resistance, but also you want to be able to get it out. And then once you do that, you go back and then you click on the set Z equals 0, or Z equals 0, I should say. And then that sets your build plate at home, and then you can go back on manual, go on 10mm and just press it about 10 times or whatever. So I think some printers will have a button which will let you do that in one click, but with this one you just set it up a few times. And that's all there is to it. That is how you level your build plate. Okay, now is the point that we put our resin into our vat. And I'm not even sure I've got enough left in this bottle. It'd be really annoying if I have to open a new one. Don't give it a vigorous shake. That's not good, gets you air bubbles and all sorts. I instead do like circular motions with it. You don't need to do this for very long. Just shake it up a bit. It really does not feel like there's a lot of resin in here. And then you can just pour it into your vat again. Don't go over. Oh my god, there is not much in here at all. No, I will have to open a new one. Yeah, we're not going to print much with that. There we go. You might notice I got gloves on during this. It's just good to get in the habit of just wearing your gloves every time you do anything regarding the 3D printer. Now I'm a bit naughty because at this stage I should have the extractor fan going as well. I've only got it turned off just because it's loud and I'm filming. That said, the air purifier is on because that's nice and quiet. And I would also be wearing a respirator, but again, I need to talk to you guys. So yeah, obviously in normal circumstances that would be going and I'd have a respirator on at this stage. So it's always nice just to peel things off. I mean, this is a very beautiful build plate. That surface is gorgeous. And I assume it will slide on there and then lock in place. There's no click. I like a click. And yeah, apparently this machine levels itself. So this is all new to me. Now would be the time to get the lid on as well. Alright, so I've switched it on and this printer will go through a few little checks before it's switched on. Most printers will just turn straight on. And it also requires an update. Because it's connected to Wi-Fi, it will automatically check and do firmware updates. You may need to download them manually for your new printer if it doesn't have Wi-Fi. So yeah, I'll just get this updated. So if you're using an older printer, you can download firmware off the manufacturer's website, put it on your flash disk, and you can just run it off there. It should all be in the quick start guide how to do that. And now it is ready to start printing. And these usually come with some files that you can already print. With Elegoo, it's always the Rook. And I will say that I don't like the Rook at all. It just really cements itself to your build plate, and I will show you an easy way to get that off. It's designed to be really hard to fail, so it doesn't give you a great example of how well your printer will print, but we'll do a calibration file later on. But for the purposes of this video, I am going to print the damn thing. So yeah. So just a case of pressing the button and the printer will do its thing. And it's totally fine at this stage to leave the printer alone. You can always come back and check on it. I don't recommend ever sort of pausing prints to check on them because they don't resume very well on resin printers. But the screen will tell you how long is left and how many layers it's printed, etc. And it's now done. So I've got my gloves on and I'm ready to remove it from the printer. So yeah, carefully take the lid off and you can see there it is hanging upside down. And to be careful at this stage, resin could drip, especially on this build plate. I find lots of little bits of loose resin you can see on there. So just be careful of your surroundings. But yeah, now we wash it. So you can get a wash station and you can bung it in there for a few minutes. But because we mostly print a load of like small bits, I don't really see the need of using one. So I'll show you the method that we use. And if you plan on printing a lot of smaller items, then you could get away with doing what we do. I know a lot of people actually don't use the wash stations. So I actually lost the original footage of me doing this. So we're going to just wash a build plate of some other bits. Essentially I have like a sort of a dirty bucket and a clean one. These are just old ice cream tubs. And yeah, I use the dirtier one I use that first to get as much off as I can. I'm just showing a short process here, but I'll normally do this for maybe about a minute or so, and then we'll go into the cleaner one. The reason I have two is because the cleaner one will last a bit longer once you've got most of the resin off in the dirty one. And yeah, I just don't like using the big 6-litre buckets of for wash stations. And once the clean resin here gets dirty, that then becomes my dirty resin, and I make a new one with clean resin. But yeah, again, I'd normally do this a bit longer than I'm showing here. Put a minute in each one, gives them a good wash. Of course, you can take them off the build plate to do this as well if they're sort of larger. And yeah, speaking of removing them from the build plate, I get a nice sharp scraper, and there's a load of shoulder pads here, and I can just get that scraper underneath, and they come off like so. But with our rook that we're going to go back to, it's not that simple. As I say, it really cements itself. So what I've got here is just an old Chinese tub, and this is a method I use to remove things from supports as well, which I think I do show later in this video. But essentially, I'm going to try and just hold this over this tub, like so. Try and get it to balance in there. And I'm going to take some boiling water from a kettle. This will help soften the resin up. So yeah, if you find stuff getting really stuck to your build plate, get some boiling water and pour that over. And the tub's just there just to catch the water, of course. This will soften the resin up. You don't have long to do this, but you should be able to then get under it. And if you still have an issue, as I'm having an issue here, as I say, it cements itself, then you can get something sharper. These ceramic hob scrapers are really good. I'd certainly recommend picking up one of them if you can. And they just do a little bit better to get out, and the thing just pops right off, like so. Yeah, try not to send your resin prints flying across the room, as I did there. But that thing is quite solid. But yeah, most things will come off the build plate, as I showed earlier. So it's only really this damn rook. But here he is, ready to be cured. I mean, it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? But yeah, like I say, anything where it's just straight on the build plate like that just really cements itself to it. So whilst I don't use the wash station, I do use the curing station. If you don't have a curing station, you can just use like a UV like nail light. I've used one of them before in the past, and they do the job. You just have to manually turn the miniature around, maybe do like a minute on either side. But with one of these, I can just chuck them in for 2 minutes. I find 2 minutes is fine. If I'm printing something really big, I might go up to 3 minutes, but I really don't think any longer than that is necessary. So yeah, just switch it on for a couple of minutes, and just wait. 1 to 2 minutes are up, you can take off the lid and it'll be cured, and it is safe then to touch without gloves, and you can undercoat it, paint it, do whatever you want with it, or just put the damn thing in the bin. Yeah, I mean, I haven't thrown it, but there's not really much to do with it. But yeah, that is the first print of this printer. So now let's look into running a calibration print before we then start printing some actual miniatures. So first thing we need to do is download a slicer, and I'm going to be using Chitubox for this one, as I find it just the easiest to use. Don't be put off by these prices. They are just for the pro version. They do try and flog it to you. Of course, we do get a year free of that, but honestly, the basic version is absolutely fine. So yeah, you can go ahead and download that. And then once that's downloaded and installed, this is what the slicing software looks like. And we'll look at it in a bit more detail. And we got to go add your printer. So go down and add a printer, and there's loads of printers there, and you just find your one. And we don't have to worry about setting anything else up, just choosing our printer at this stage. Thing we need to do is search for a resin calibration file, and just go in here onto Yegi. We'll look at these types of websites a little bit later on. I like this one, and you can go ahead and download that for free. And then we can open that up in our slicer. Then you go down the bottom and click on Slice. And then you can either save that to a USB, or you can send it via the network, depending on which type of printer you have. And then you can run that on your printer. And instead of boring you with all of the print, wash, cure, and all that again, we'll take you straight to the finished result here. So things to look out for on here. Now, I won't say I'm a huge expert on these calibration things, but you can kind of see right off the bat we've got a little bit of sort of warpage there, and these triangles are a good indicator as well. So the sharper the corners are, the closer you know you are to getting your best results. And you can see they're slightly rounded on this. But overall, it's pretty good. We lost a little bit of the pegs up there. And yeah, from first view on this, our exposure is probably just a little bit too high, but not by a great deal. So if I go on to Chitubox, the default settings for the exposure time for the Mars 5 Ultra is 2.5 seconds. So I would probably lower this down to maybe like 2.3. And you could keep running calibration tests until you get one that you're really happy with. And what I will say though, if you do continue with the default profile, you will still get really nice prints. But calibration is all about trying to just get the nicest prints possible, with the sharpest detail that you can get away with. So don't feel like you have to do this step if you just want to get up and running and start printing. But yeah, essentially that's what you do. But this really isn't too far off from being right. And if you want more information, the file page for this calibration file has all the details of what to look out for and what it all means. The cube looks really cool as well, doesn't it? So yeah, I think it's time that we start printing an actual miniature. So let's go back to Yegi. So Yegi, as it says at the top, is the search engine for 3D printable models. It's a very good place to start if you're looking for things to print. It's a bit sort of generic, so it will have FDM and resin suitable stuff as well. I'm just typing in Space Marines here, so you get stuff like proxies for Space Marines or Chaos. Get the odd bits. Obviously, searching for GW stuff is not always the best way to go. So sometimes it's better to be a little bit more generic with your searches. It all depends what you're looking for, really. So I'm just going to search for Elf Ranger. That'll be an example we'll use for this video. And you can see lots of different Elf Rangers from different websites. And they'll tell you whether they're for free or for sale. And they'll tell you which website you can find them on. And some of these websites you'll become very familiar with. So just clicking on this one here. And this is on my mini factory. This is a great website for finding loads of miniatures. You'll Be hard pushed to find anything that are free, but a lot of them are very cheap to buy the STL files for. You can see there's lots of nice elf rangers here, and you can go to price to low to high if you want. But normally, obviously, higher prices normally mean higher quality miniatures. And going on high, there's normally like big old packs and bundles. Also, lots of these companies you'll find on here will have Patreons that you can sign up monthly and get loads of miniatures per month for just small amounts, which I do highly recommend if there's some that really take your fancy. So here I've gone on to Cults 3D. And Cults 3D is also another very popular website, and this one you will find some free STL files on. Search Elf Ranger. Now it is slightly slower, but they do give you the option to filter by free. So if you're not looking to pay for anything, then you can find some free miniatures. Again, you get what you pay for. The quality of the miniatures won't be as high or as detailed, but they will be free. And to be fair, some of these are still pretty nice. For purposes of this video, which I think is becoming a catchphrase, I'll be printing the Assassin for Trench Crusade from the Iron Sultanate. This is to go with my warband. You may have seen the video I done on them if you're a regular to this channel. So yeah, this is a miniature that I will be adding, and this one comes pre-supported, but I'll also print a couple of other little items to show how we go about adding our own supports. So here he is in our slicer, and I'm just going to add some other items as well, because I want to show you how to go about supporting your own miniatures if they come unsupported, and the right ways and wrong ways to go about this. So we've got a spear here, and we've got this sort of round icon thing. Now, one thing you don't want to do, and you might be tempted to do, I know I was when I first started, was to lay them flat when you support them. With 3D printing in resin, how long a print takes depends on how high it is, because it's done layer by layer. So you might think laying them down like this will make them print nice and fast. And yes, they would if they would print properly. Printing parallel to the build plate is never a good idea. It can cause you to have print failures due to the suction. And yeah, you really want like a 35-45 degree angle is best. And what I've done here is I've used the auto supports on Chitty Box, and then I've just gone in and just added a few little extra supports at the bottom of the miniatures. Now the auto supports have got really good on Chitty Box. When I first started doing this, they were quite poor, but now they are quite good. So yeah, you can get away with just using them, but I always like just to add just a couple more at the bottom, just for peace of mind. And here I've just angled them slightly to the side as well, and then again just adding some auto supports. You don't have to angle them slightly to the side, it's just more of a preference. And then yeah, going down to the bottom, these sort of orange areas are areas that sort of need supports essentially. And yeah, just nice to add a couple of extras for peace of mind. So everything is on the build plate here. I did notice I accidentally opened another file with these, so luckily I see that and delete that, and then we can go ahead and slice as we did before. And once that print is done, I do apologise how bright the light is in here. We can take them off the build plate, and again it's the same wash and cure process as I showed you earlier, so I'm not going to show you all that again, but what I will do now is show you the best way to remove them off their supports. And I do that before I cure them, but after I wash them. So wash them first, remove the supports, and then do your curing, as it will make the supports easier to remove. And yeah, we're back here with the Chinese tub and the kettle. I mentioned it earlier. It's a very good way of removing supports, and there is a lot of supports on this guy. Now you can just try and pull them off, but you run the risk of breaking the miniature, especially with these really delicate swords and stuff. You could cut them off with some clippers, but you could be here a while. Some parts like this round icon, not a lot of supports on them. They're quite a solid piece. You can just pull them off fairly easily. So when it comes to the spear, you can get away with just snipping around the more delicate areas. There's not a lot of supports on this one. I did try to pull them off, but I thought we'll stick with our hot water just to be on the safe side. So I'll put a miniature in the tub and I'll pour the hot water directly onto it. And yeah, obviously be careful doing this because that water's very hot. But you'll see already just how much easier these supports come off. And again, just go in with the clippers around the delicate areas. Even with the hot water, I still don't like to pull on them. Still like to snip around them. And you can go back in the hot water, soften them up even more. And you can see he's literally only going in for a couple of seconds. You can leave him in a bit longer, but it really doesn't need much. And it's very satisfying when you can remove a load of supports like that. And yeah, there he is. You see there's odd little bits still on that we can clean up after. But yeah, it's as easy as that. And with our spear, you just dunk that in. A few seconds. And that'll come off a lot easier. Like so. And for stuff like spears and stuff as well, like you can see sort of it's quite flexible and it can sort of bend. So now's a good time to straighten that out. So if you have any prints that are not completely straight, then hot water can help straighten them back out as well before you cure them. And once they're cured, that'll be the position they're in. So yeah, make sure they're nice and straight when you go about curing them. And here's our printed miniature in all of his glory. Now, I was going to do some troubleshooting in this video and explain and go over things that can go wrong and how to fix them, but I think that's going to have to be a separate video because this one is running very, very long. In terms of everything you need to get started, I think I've covered about as much as I think is necessary. So yeah, that was the beginner's guide to resin 3D printing. And yeah, I hope that's not too much to take in. I hope it's easy enough for you guys to follow. If you have any questions, then of course leave them down below and I will answer them, or maybe someone else in the community will answer them. And, you know, we can all help each other. If this video turns out being useful for just one person getting into their resin 3D printing journey, then it's definitely been worth the effort to make. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed watching it. Please do feel free to give it a like if you have enjoyed it. And also please feel free to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. As I say, we'll have a troubleshooting video for resin 3D printing. And yeah, I do all sorts of stuff, painting tutorials, kit bashes, white dwarf reviews, 3D printing content, and more. It's a little bit of everything on this channel. And yeah, I'm always happy for suggestions as well of what you'd like to see. I might do a guide similar to this on FDM printing. And there's a much larger community for FDM printing, so someone's probably already done a much better job than I have already. But yeah, if that's something you'd like to see, then certainly let me know. Again, any other suggestions you can put in the comments. So all that's left to say is thank you so much for watching. If you managed to make it this far, it's probably one of the longest videos I've made for a very long time. But certainly something I've been wanting to do for a while now. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all again in the next video.